when I began to see the potential of what we may be dealing with, I was overwhelmed. It wasn't because I didn't like what I saw, it just scared me.
As author and journalist Ernest Hemingway wrote, "It is good to have an end to journey toward, but it is the journey that matters in the end." Nothing could be closer to the truth for my family and me. In fact, you likely can relate to these sentiments as well. The journey I am embarking on is one I invite you to share with me. It is one I could never have imagined myself taking, but when confronted with the opportunity, it is a journey I could not refuse. Having traveled throughout the U.S., Montana is one state I had yet to visit, at least until now. What led me here was the birth of our fifth child, Sophia. My wife's pregnancy never revealed any signs for concern.
We had no idea if anything will be different or wrong during our pregnancy. It was a normal pregnancy. I had a little bump in the beginning, but it was nothing showing that nothing will be developmentally wrong or different. I'm on the border age. I was 35, and yes, as they watched me close, I had extra sonogram. Still, everything was good, and so that was a surprise of being early delivery. And at the same time, I wanted her to stay longer because it was not time for her to come, because she wasn't ready.
However, when Sophia was born, the tide changed quickly. My wife was overwhelmed by the experience, both physically and emotionally.
When I said, please get her out of me, it wasn't more with pain than, not physical pain, but emotional, that she coming too early. What it's gonna bring, what it's gonna be, what's she gonna suffer, what she gonna have to go through. None of the mother or father wants their child to go through difficulties or even IVs and tests and any procedures or any difficulties, of course. And so yes, I wish to deliver her to this world. I wanted her to stay in a little oven as long as possible, but she was hurrying up.
I'll never forget the night that she was flown from our town to the hospital in Fort Worth, that I received a call from the receiving doctor, a wonderful doctor, and she called me and she asked me on the phone if they could do some chromosome testing. So this was, I had just gotten home from a long day. I knew my wife was up there. I was worried about everything. And here I'm suddenly getting questions that I had no idea what she was talking about. It was too much for me to, I wasn't there. I couldn't comprehend what was going on. And she started going into the medical terminology, but then she simplified it as she understood. I couldn't quite comprehend it, and said that, there are just too many signs that point to other issues. And so she asked me that question, and I agreed, of course, absolutely do whatever you need to do. Over a period of time of about a month, we found out the diagnosis, which is called Pallister-Killian Syndrome. And it's a chromosome syndrome that affects the 12th chromosome. When we discovered the syndrome, this new point we were at was a good point because now we could put a name to it. And that was a helpful moment, but it was a very short-lived moment. Because after that, it's almost as though, okay, here's the diagnosis, now it's in your hands. And we didn't really know where to go from there. And especially finding out that it was a relatively rare syndrome didn't help us either.
Though there was still much to learn, what better way than to start at ground zero, where the first medical journal entry about PKS stemmed from, Shodair Children's Hospital in Helena, Montana. And what better setting for an initial meeting with the man credited for the discovery of PKS, Dr. Philip Pallister, and those who know him. Longtime friend and former colleague Jack Casey vividly remembers his first encounter with Dr. Pallister.
So I called out there, and he said, well, come out, we have a job open out here. So I went out there and talked to Dr. Miller, and he said, well, I want you to meet Dr. Pallister. So I went down and walked into an office, and there was a gentleman there sitting in about $1,000 suit. And then behind the desk was this gentleman that looked a little rough, and beard, and no tie, no white shirt, and it was Dr. Pallister. And he asked me what I did for a living, and I handed him my resume and stuff, and he looks at it. He says, oh, I see where you graduated from a private Catholic college. Are you one of those narrow-minded bastards that looks down at tube all their lives and can't think for themselves? Well, I'd never heard anything like that. I just kind of shocked. And I said, no, I can think for myself. So we went on, and he said, well, what are you worth? What do you do for a living? And I told him, medical technologist. And he said, well, what are you worth? What do I got to pay you? Well, at that time, a good salary for a med tech was $600 a month. So in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm not going to work for this guy. And he said, well, what'll it take? And I said, $850 a month. And he throws the stuff at me, and he says, what makes you worth $850 a month? And I said, I graduated from a private Catholic college. And we became friends from that minute on. And so I went to work for him.
When I came here, it was called the Montana State Training School. But there was a sign over the administration building saying Montana State School for the Feeble-Minded. And they never bothered to take the sign down until Dr. Westwell came here a year and a half later and removed it.
He went in there, and he didn't care who he stepped on or what happened. He made the conditions better for the patient. And he would carry it to the nth degree to where when I was out there at one point, there were 1,254 patients in that institution that hundreds, literally hundreds, didn't belong there.
I decided I would go someplace where Willie and I and the kids could enjoy the mountains and have trout fishing and that kind of stuff that we'd learned to recognize was another way of life, traveling through here and so on. And so I elected to come to Boulder, Montana, after I looked at half a dozen places in the state that didn't have adequate trout fishing. I came here partly because not only the trout fishing, but I had a guaranteed income. And it was $125 a month offered from the state institution, and another $25 for being health officer, another $50 for being the county physician, take care of the people on relief, welfare, they called it relief then. And all I had to do to earn the money at the state school was to go down there 3 times a week and take sick call, or be there when they called me. I thought I'd better go down and see what was going on in their sick call. And the first one that came through was a boy named Ray Lenz. He was a rather tall, lanky, skinny guy with a short chin. And he had a pain on the side of his head, he told the matron, or told the attendant, Moyer. So she had a stick sponge, long forceps with a sponge on it, dipped in merthiolate, which is a red antiseptic, and she painted the side of his head. And I could not understand what was going on. It didn't register what I was seeing. And the next one was a kid with a pain in his side. He dropped his bib overalls, and the patients wore bib overalls unless they went to the school. They had bowl haircuts, literally. They put a bowl on their head and cut around it, and the males. And the only kids that wore decent clothes were the kids that were able to go to school. I say kids, all ages. They were the eponymic thing was they're all kids. That's what everybody called them. And this kid dropped his bib overalls and pain in his side, and she painted it with a merthiolate. I said, "What are you doing?" She says, "These people don't have any real problems. They just want attention. So we just paint them like that." There was no thought of physical examination, paying attention to what the patient was telling him, any of this sort. That was just the rudimentary thing.
He did all he could to help deinstitutionalize that and get patients, when we called them kids, get the kids into Helena. And, you know, I still see some of those people, kids here in town, and I mean, we talk all the time. Most satisfaction I ever had is working out there.
Dr. Pallister reflects on his initial encounter with what would be the first patients later diagnosed with PKS.
We're trying to rehabilitate what we can, straighten out limbs that were crooked and all this kind of stuff. I recognized early, somewhere along the line, that they had a similar physiognostic appearance to me, that their bodies, their appearance, their demeanor looked alike. And I would tell people that I thought they had the same syndrome, and there were many different, even internationally renowned geneticists that saw them that did not agree with me or did not think that they had this same thing. And we had done their chromosomes, and they were apparently normal several times as techniques changed. And they had this coarse appearance that many of the kids develop as they get older, partly from dilantin, which is used to treat the seizures. Some of these syndromes gets deposits in the skin, makes hair grow, makes the lips get thick and coarse features. So is it due to the drug, or is it the natural course of the disorder? Is a question. We're doing drug analyses, trying to control the level so it doesn't get too high and all of that. So all of these factors are interfering with diagnosis and the lack of ability to make a diagnosis. We first reported it in 1976 in the journal Lancet as probable. It looked like a very small 20 chromosome. It looks just about, there are little X's. And we thought it was a possible 20 trisomy and an extra, and mosaic, because it was only in some cells and not in others. Not in most of them. And only in some tissues and not in others. So that means mosaicism. And at that point, we had a diagnosis for the first time, but there was some question about what this chromosome was. So then we wrote the definitive article, which was published in Birth Defects Journal in 1977.
When this came about, Dr. Pallister was at Chaudère, and as he pointed out when we were talking to him earlier today, you need to base the knowledge, and then you just keep building on it. Just because you find something doesn't mean it's over. Or if you find something that's not treatable, doesn't mean it's over. You just keep building on that and getting input from families. I had 2 incidences in my family where I had 4 kids, and 2 were having some medical issues, and took him to doctors, and Dr. Pallister's the one that I finally took him to, and he resolved it. And he always said, when all else fails, examine the patient and listen to the mother.
Once my wife and Sophia finally arrived safely to Helena, it wouldn't be long before we would all meet up with Dr. Pallister at his ranch, not only bringing with us our little bundle of joy, but many questions as well. Until then, it was time to get settled and for them to get some much-needed rest.
There was some battles with the insurance companies and paperwork, and that is something that families with special needs face. It's a difficulties with the insurance companies and what to be approved. Quality of life, of the needed equipment, of walkers and wheelchairs and other items that are very well needed are not always approved by insurance, is not given.
When she was born, and when we found out, and I began to see pictures, and we began to see in person through the conference, and just more and more information of that array of what may or may not happen. It was very challenging, especially with the other children, just not knowing what's going to happen. I didn't feel good about myself, and I think this is very important for me to relay to everybody that may be watching, that I don't think it's probably uncommon. I've had to give myself a break for that. I'm entitled to feel what I feel, and I'm entitled a chance to work through it and try to understand it. Because in the beginning, I didn't understand what I was feeling. It was such a strong emotion. But like I said, it was definitely, there was a lot of guilt. I definitely felt very guilty as my own daughter.
Having finally arrived at Dr. Pallister's ranch, we were welcomed from the start and even treated to a couple of jokes in the kitchen.
Lonnie, there are two words you use all the time and once you stop using. One is awesome and the other is cool. She says, okay, Dad, what are they?
Shortly after, I jokingly asked if he would examine Sophia.
Are you going to do the examination now?
Well, it should be fine. Whatever.
Encouraged by his response to do so, it was only moments after setting Sophia on the dining table that he immediately began to point out his discoveries after observing her that we were previously unaware of.
First place, she's kind of puffy.
Yes.
Aside from pointing out several common characteristics found in other children with PKS, he noted fatty tissue in Sophia's hands and feet, as well as her excessive sweatiness, and suggested we have both her thyroid and kidney checked upon our return home. As the evening progressed, we were treated to dinner Dr. Pallister prepared himself, followed by discussion that exceeded our initial hopes for this journey. In fact, Dr. Pallister noted that it wouldn't surprise him if Sophia would be able to talk one day, giving us a more positive outlook for the future.
We see good things. I see desire of her to talk. You know, we have some severe to mild to severe hearing loss, so hoping we're getting our hearing aid pretty soon. We can see that she really wants to talk, and she's very talkative. And sometimes I can think she's saying the sentences, it just mumbled. So for her not to hear clearly, to her it's all like that. So it's all what she can say back. So I believe she can talk. I believe she can stand and will. She has desires to push on her legs and do those things. So she has a desire. And I think any child with any disability, doesn't mean with PKS, they want to do things. They just need to be gently taught or encouraged how to do them. Not necessarily by only exercising, but just I'm learning still myself, of course. And
Good choice, Sophia.
just encourage them.
I was talking with the kids.
So what do you see when you see her?
When I see her, I'm an atheist, but I like the phrase God's children. I see a process of evolution going on, and for her case it didn't turn out well. But I see a family that loves her.
The most important that she's happy, that she's healthy, whatever we can provide to be maximum health for her, in her case. And, you know, she has good toys, and if she responds to them, and, you know, noisy one, and lights, and whatever she responds, and help her to kind of trigger her brain to want to learn more. She's a happy kid, and that's what matters, really. That she's comfortable, that she is enjoying her surroundings, and she has something to help her to be curious, and curiosity sparks development.
And we have a great
Yes.
rehabilitation team.
Yes, amazing ladies. So we love our therapists. They're awesome, and they teach us. You know, they encourage Sophia. It's not work. It's turns into being a game, and excitement. Sometimes Sophia just sleeps through, and she doesn't want to do anything, and that's, you know, we kind of chat, and they may suggest some things. We talk about different equipment, possibly to get for Sophia, and what is important and comfortable, and what will benefit her. And again, Sophia runs the show, so if she's tired, and not necessarily that she just whiny tired, sometimes she also figure out that she can kind of cheat out of her sessions. Yes, ma'am. And she would make her look like she's tired, but she was just moody. And but sometimes she just sleeps through, and then she's not ready to do it, and it's fine. It's her timing. You know, I really don't want to break her desire.
Longtime friend Ann Seliskar and former colleague of Dr. Pallister, who was also at Dr. Pallister's ranch during our visit, says of him, the only thing more formidable than his intelligence is his compassion. Though in his retirement, Dr. Pallister continues to remain active in research and writing his memoirs, the one thing he is especially touched by is being in contact with the families' lives he's impacted over the years.
I like those things. I like them to write to me. I like to hold the kids. I'm not very hard. It's all show.
There's a little flame inside us all. Some shine bright, some shine small. The rains will come and the waters rise, but don't you ever lose your light. In this life you will know love and pain, joy and sorrow. So when it hurts, when times get hard, don't forget whose child you are. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, gonna let it shine. May you live each day with no regret. Make the most of every chance you get. Let your eyes get wide when you look at the stars, with the same sense of wonder as a child's heart. With the ones you love, treasure the time, and for those who are gone, keep their memories alive. Hold on to your dreams, don't ever let go. There's a fire inside you, burn it with hope. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it
like me. You like my chest vibrating when I talk, don't you? Guten Abend, guten Nacht, mit Rosen bedeckt, mit Näglein besteckt, schlaf unter die Deck. Morgen früh, so Gott will, wirst du wieder geweckt. Morgen früh, so Gott will, wirst du wieder geweckt.
The most memorable moment for me was when I was holding Sophia in my arms one weekend when we went to go visit. And while I was holding her, and all those moments were special, my wife would take a break and she would go to spend time with the other children, and I would be in the room alone with Sophia. So I'd be in there holding her, taking care of her, and this one day I was just overwhelmed by a lot of visions, a lot of feelings and emotions, but specifically about what I needed to do, what I could do. And part of it was this short documentary, at the very least. And actually this short documentary has been shortened because I had so many ideas originally, and I still hope that those ideas will come to fruition, that this may just be the beginning.